Hello everyone. I will be talking about the Carbon Racket. This is an impromptu recording. I don't have notes. I don't have anything. But I am a bit riled up about an article I got sent by a relative about this ridiculous carbon emissions green agenda idiocy that is now coming at us little people, right? Normal, regular human beings who just want to live their lives and be happy. Anyway, this green agenda is now coming at us in full force. And, I wish for some things. Like when this whole thing started, this Agenda 2030, whatever, United Nations, blah, 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 and people started talking about this carbon thing, emissions or whatever, I ventured a guess. I ventured a guess on what this was all about, and boy, sometimes I wish I was just wrong. Actually, I am glad that I am wrong sometimes. Because whenever I see these surreptitious ideas being inserted into the collective consciousness, I immediately jump to wreck it. And I wish sometimes it was about a real thing. Just, to shake things up. Maybe sometimes it could be about, I don't know, planting forests or saving some animal from extinction or whatever. Sometimes it should be about a good thing, right? It never is. It's always the same crap. It's always let's plant lies to harvest money. It's always the same thing. And it's always the same people who are doing these things. And everyone follows along. And you know why everyone follows along? Because there is money in it for everyone who gets involved. Everyone who participates in the theater, in the new production of reality, they will get money. They will be rewarded for playing a role in this ridiculous charade that is now going on for some time now, but now it's getting momentum. And so I was sent this article about carbon credits, which I knew this was the goal all along. Anyway, so I will go through this article. It's written in Portuguese. I have Google translated it into English, and so the words are all, not all, but some words are just so wrong. And I will try to wrap my head around them and translate it again into the correct terminology. But I want to remind everyone that English is not my first language. This is no surprise to anyone who is listening to this, right? Anyway, and so maybe I will say some words that are not exactly correct, but I will ask anyone who is listening to this to work with me here. I am making an honest attempt at putting out some good information about what's going on in this realm, in this crazy place that we live, we human beings. Again, I always try to be very clear that when I say we, it's everyone, every human being, okay? It's not we nice people and those bad people. It's all of us, bad, good, all human beings, okay? Everyone. So, yeah. we inhabit an insane place, and there are these groups of people that gather together and they do whatever they like. You know why? Because they are very good at explaining things to others. There is a group of people that has figured out that humans work on stories. And they then write up these stories, and they are good. They're really good. And so they write up a script, a wonderful story. It all makes sense if you believe the key variables that they put in. And since they tangle these variables up so that if you buy into one tiny little bit of this story, whatever story that they put out, then you buy the whole franchise. I'll explain how this works so you are clear on what's happening to you. If you're not one of the people that is doing this, okay, which I imagine is a very tiny group of people who has figured this out, and then they just do whatever they want and they have a wonderful time in this place. Really, because they figured out how human beings work, and so they just tell their stories and do whatever. They're free as birds. They're freer as birds, even freer. Okay, so now I will first tell you how this works, right? I am sure you have watched a franchise of a movie, or maybe you're into comic books, something like that. So let's say the Breaking Bad series. So the Breaking Bad series was about drug dealers and a guy that was a teacher, and then he became a drug dealer, a big boss drug dealer. Okay, so you have that setting, and there are some specific characters and they do specific things. It's like a universe, the universe of that story. For anyone who doesn't know what universe is, it's one verse, one version. It's a literary term. Verse is a literary term. It's a version of reality. This is what a universe is. It's one story. Okay. So that universe of Breaking Bad was established throughout the seasons, and there were characters and there was the plot. Okay, so one of the characters was beloved by the public. He was Saul Goodman, a lawyer. He was a criminal lawyer. He was very good at defending criminal charges, and he was also immoral. He was a criminal himself. So it was a very interesting character, and the public who watched Breaking Bad really liked that character. So then, the people who live from making series just went and made a spin-off of this original series, which was Breaking Bad, and created another series called Better Call Saul, in which the central character was Saul Goodman, because the public liked him. And so it was an easy story to sell. Okay, so what's going on in our so-called reality that is presented to us in news channels and media, everywhere? This, what is presented to us, it's a kind of spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off. It's that thing that people call augmented reality. Now we have these terms, but for a long time, there was just fiction and non-fiction. It's all fiction. Except for things that you can verify yourself, like cookie recipes you get on the internet, and then you go to the market and you buy the ingredients, and then you bake the cookies, and voila, the information was true. If you do everything they say you have to do with those ingredients, then at the end of the process you have cookies. Okay, so this is real information. Or if you talk to a friend and he says something happened in his life, he might be lying, okay? But if you know your friend, you know when he is lying, embellishing. Anyway, you have a relationship there, so you can know more or less what's going on, right? And then there are the things that happen to you. And if you're completely honest with yourself, even things that happen to you, sometimes you get wrong. You thought it was one thing, and then it wasn't, and then you are all sad because you were basing your life on something that wasn't there. Anyway, so we, human beings, are living inside a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off, except for things that happen to us that we can verify, or that people we know tell us, or information that doesn't carry an agenda. Very easy. It's not that hard to understand. Everything else is more or less fiction. But the established universe, the version of truth, the version of reality that is presented to us, this universe is so vast. It had so many collaborations into building it that it seems to be reality. So, the bad news. You're probably living inside a story. And your problem is, right now, that you didn't write this story. So you're an extra. If you start thinking about it, why you always feel that your life isn't really working out the way you want it to, this is probably because you are acting in a play that you didn't write. So, first thing is get off the stage and sit for a little while in the audience and watch the show. Watch the show until you realize what is going on and what is being done to you. And then just get out of the theater and either write your own play or just go about your life and don't bother anymore with this ridiculous nonsense. Just don't waste your time. Go about your life and do the best you can with the realization that you live in a completely fabricated reality. And then try to figure out what is actually real. There is reality, right? Reality is everything that is not caught up in the story. It's just there, like, I don't know, a flower or a bee is reality. The bee doesn't know that human beings call them bees. The bee has no name. It is an unnamed thing, natural being. A natural being. A natural creature that occurs in the world. If it had a name, you wouldn't even be able to pronounce it. It would be a name in bee language. The bees would have their own thing going on. You wouldn't even know you're not a bee. Anyone listening to this is now disappointed and will leave the channel because the person talking is completely nuts, right? And talking about names of bees. Okay. Coming back to the carbon racket, this is what is now going on. Besides a whole other mess of things, everyone has their own little racket going on. But this carbon racket is what I'm going to talk about because this is the article that was sent to me. So I live in Brazil, and recently Congress, these structures are ridiculous. Ridiculous. A lot of useless people sitting in a room getting huge sums of money for sitting there and talking nonsense. This is Idiocracy. If you haven't watched Idiocracy, you have to watch Idiocracy. The idiots are running this place. Okay. Congress just approved a regulated carbon market in the country to reduce polluting gas emissions. I will read that again. I will read it again so you can just relax and get into the rant I will now present to you. Okay, the title of the article. Congress approves regulated carbon market in the country to reduce polluting gas emissions. Okay, this is the carbon racket. I knew it. I knew it was a fabricated market. An intangible, non-existent thing like cryptocurrencies that you can just magically pull out of thin air. If you get everyone on board, you can then make tons of money of it. You make tons of money of oh my God, of buying and selling a non-existent thing for a non-existent problem that you just fabricated. You wrote a script of this big boogeyman, nemesis, carbon emissions, gas emissions. Yesterday, like, I don't know, not even 100 years ago, carbon was like gold. And then this was the big story. Everyone should buy a car. And now this isn't so interesting anymore because the market is saturated. It has nothing to do with the planet. The planet is fine. This place is fine. I don't even like to use the word planet because it's just it's just a diminutive of plane. Have you realized that? It's like pig and piglet, plane and planet. It's also ridiculous. And people fall for these things because they don't know what words mean. And so the first thing I will do for you as a present, as a gift to you, is telling you what these words mean. So, Congress approves regulated carbon market in the country to reduce polluting gas emissions. I will tell you what polluting means and what gas means. I will put the links in the description so you can go there and verify for yourself that I'm not making this shit up. I will first tell you what pollution originally is. It is a term for sin. It was invented by very uptight people who can't bear the existence of normal, regular human beings that have bodies and that want to do with their body whatever they like. So, I am sorry about what I'm going to read, but you need to know these things. Here, Okay. Pollution. This is from Etym Online, a very good site. It's the next best thing after you having paper dictionaries, old ones, not the new ones that are all agenda driven or whatever. But Etym Online is actually pretty cool. Okay, so pollution on Etym Online. It's from the word pollution, which means discharge of semen other than during sex. Later, it became desecration, profanation, defilement, legal or ceremonial uncleanness. It's a religious term because uptight people think that masturbation is a bad thing. It's horrible and should be avoided. Now, I'm not proposing masturbation here, right? But you have to admit that if you have a body, a physical body with urges, that sometimes you will engage in some recreational activities by yourself. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's natural, okay? But there are people, again, who love to tell others what to do with their lives and their bodies and whatever else that is not theirs, that is from the other person, but they want to meddle. They want to tell them what is right and wrong because they like to control other people. And so they came up with this idea that either you were making babies or nothing. This comes from religion. Pollution is a religious term for sin. So, first conclusion, pollution is nothing. This word means nothing real. It's just a word uptight people like to use to make others feel bad about their behavior. And then I want to tell you what gas is. Okay. Also from Etym Online, also in the description. Gas comes from the Dutch word gas, and they don't even know. They are guessing because they write it like this. Probably from Greek chaos, empty space. So gas, it's empty space. So emissions of empty space, again, is nothing. Then they tell you, still on Etym Online, under the word gas, that Paracelsus, some mythical figure, used chaos in an occult sense of the proper element of spirits, which was from another person's definition of gas that went like this. This vapor, hitherto unknown, I call by a new name, gas. So, gas was empty space, or then some undefined quality like spirit that was also known as vapor, because it was nothing, right? They didn't know what it was, and so they called it some name, and they gave it the name gas. And if you just scroll a little bit, there is a quote from some other guy named Weekly that states point blank the following phrase: the success of this artificial word is unique. Think about it. Gas is an artificial word that was invented to describe something that no one could know, no one could see, but that had some effect that they imagined was being caused by this thing they didn't know how to describe, and so they came up with this word, gas, that was so successful that it is still being used to make regular human beings all crazy and worked up about nothing. So, back to the article. Reducing polluting gas emissions means literally nothing. It means reducing the sin of emitting nothing, empty space. So when you translate these things, then you can see what is being done. It is so good that it is not even a lie. The Congress is approving a regulated carbon market. This carbon market is like crypto market. It's a thing they invented, a name that they will now be able to sell, buy and sell, like in the stock market. This is what's going to happen. It's just a name of a intangible thing that they will now buy and sell under the guise of environmentalism, regulated by the governments to harvest money. And they will reward a lot of people and a lot of structures, control structures, with huge amounts of money to make this happen, because it's a money racket. Of course it's a money racket. Money is a problem because it just runs out of things to buy. And so if you want to have more money, you have to base it on something. And if there is nothing for you to base it on, because people don't go buying like 150 houses if they're not nuts, then you have to come up with something intangible that can be bought and sold, so you can create and distribute more money. And this happens because money is also intangible and idiotic and something that doesn't really exist. And so you have to come up with these non-things to allocate more money or to create more money to distribute around people so that they can then buy real things like chickens and eggs and cheese and whatever. Anyway, so now that you know what polluting means and what gas means, now you can just give up on all this idea that some carbon thing is damaging the planet. And also, before I go into the article per se, I will tell you why this gas emissions business is ridiculous, even if you go by their own definition. Because I told you what it really means, right? You can look it up yourself. It's not that hard. But for the people that wrote this script so that they can now invent a huge new market, which this is all about. It's all about money. It's just about money. Relax. Nothing is happening to the trees or to nature. Nothing. It's all fine. But they need some kind of idea, some kind of market, so that they can then make fake money on a fake market and then buy real things. Okay. But let's say you want to buy into the story, even by the definition, in their own terms. It doesn't make any sense. Because, you know, trees, you know, those things that they will plant to save the planet from all the carbon emissions. I will tell you something about trees. By their own words, these are not my words. It's their thing. It's their story, which is tied up with all the rest of the idiotic things that we are told. So even going by their story, I will tell you about trees, something about trees. I will put 2 links in the description about trees, so you can go there and read for yourself. It's not that I necessarily believe that this is the actual explanation. It's just we are presented with a lot of stories, many explanations about things. I didn't come up with them. You probably didn't come up with them. This information is just there, as if it were the truth or something. So even if you go by this presented truth, this whole carbon emissions thing doesn't make any sense. So trees. On this first website, I'll put the link down there. It reads like this. It is well known that trees act as carbon sinks, taking in carbon dioxide from the air during photosynthesis and releasing the oxygen that humans breathe. While trees use carbon dioxide to make their own food, they actually need oxygen to process that food into energy. So, 2 things. 1, trees, vegetation depends on carbon dioxide. This is what they are saying, okay? I'm not going into molecules and whatever here. This is a whole other story. But they are telling you, in their own words, that trees need carbon dioxide. They need it for them to grow. Vegetation needs carbon dioxide. So the idea that carbon dioxide is somehow bad and polluting or whatever, a sin to the environment, is ridiculous. It's just tree food, vegetation food. They need it. The whole world, the whole natural plant world needs carbon dioxide. It's food. This is like telling you, a human being, that apples are bad, that we have to get rid of all apples because they are polluting human beings' restaurants. Completely idiotic. The trees need carbon dioxide to exist. Anyway, and then the second thing is, these people are always telling us that one way of getting rid okay, I can't, it's so dumb, I can't. I'm sorry, it's just so dumb. Okay, I will try to control myself. These people are forever telling us that one way of reducing this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is by planting trees. Okay. And then they tell us that the trees need carbon dioxide and that they will take it in. Okay. But then in the second sentence, they say, and the trees also need oxygen to process this carbon dioxide. So trees won't help any of it. Can't you see that? It's ridiculous. The trees will take in carbon dioxide, and this is their idea, the whole idea, that they will plant a lot of trees and the trees will then act as sponges or sinks and will take in all this extra carbon dioxide. Oh my God, it's so ridiculous. And then we will get rid of this horrible, horrible carbon dioxide they invented. But then, in their own words, they say the trees also need oxygen. So they cancel it out. You can plant 1,000,000 trees and nothing will happen. Nothing. Except maybe our environment will get a little more green and pleasant. So I'm totally up for people getting money to plant trees. Please plant more trees. Apple trees, orange trees, whatever trees you want to plant. Go on and plant trees. Or flowers. I'm very pro flowers. But it won't do anything to the alleged problem of gas emissions. Okay. And then I have another link that leads you to a PDF that tells you about a redwood and what trees need to grow. And this is what it says. Trees, like all green plants, create the food they need to live and grow through photosynthesis, a process that occurs in their leaves. To manufacture food in the form of glucose and other sugars, a tree needs energy from sunlight, carbon dioxide from the air, and water. Water enters through the tree's roots and carries nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium into the tree. Okay, again, carbon dioxide in the air is necessary for tree or vegetation to grow. The nutrients that are in the soil are only part of what makes a tree. If you really think about it, let's say you cut a tree. What do you have? Wood. Now you take this wood and then you burn it. What happens to this wood? It turns into charcoal. And then you use it to make fires and barbecues, right? That is, we are told, carbon. Where do you think all this carbon came from? It's not from the soil. Here's what's in the soil: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and water, which is also not in the soil, right? It falls from the sky, then the soil gets wet, and then the tree just sucks it up and does what a tree does best. Be a tree. Okay, but the thing is, without carbon dioxide in the air, there is no tree, there is no wood, there is no charcoal for you to later on barbecue your meat, that they will also say is a big problem because it creates carbon emissions. So, yeah, I hope you are now satisfied that this carbon problem isn't a problem at all. Even in their own estimation, with their own words, their explanations, the explanations that are given to us. Raising cattle is a problem because of carbon emissions. Okay, so you have the cow there, and then allegedly they fart or whatever, and you have carbon emissions, and this is a big problem. Then these carbon emissions are taken in by vegetation and trees. Then trees grow and vegetables grow and we have food. And then the cow makes her business and you take that and you feed it to the tree also, because, big surprise, it has everything vegetation needs: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And then it rains and then you have plenty of food. Meat to eat, vegetables to eat, fruit on trees. It's a perfect cycle. Of course it's a perfect cycle. It's nature. This is what nature does. If it was bad for nature, nature would take care of it. Nature takes care of everything. It doesn't depend on Congress passing some ridiculous regulations to regulate non-existing things to make non-existent fake money. Nature doesn't even care about those idiots. And you shouldn't care either. Because it's all just a story. It's all just lies. And now let's talk about these ridiculous lies a little bit, and then I leave you alone because it's Saturday and oh my God, I'm ranting about the carbon racket. I now will just tell you about this article. So the objective of this regulation is sold as to reduce emissions of polluting gases so that Brazil can comply with multilateral commitments related to the environment. This is French for the objective is to nothing, 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 but we all are in it together to make money out of thin air. So here is the whole racket explained. When regulating the rules, a ceiling must be defined for the emissions of carbon dioxide in certain production activities. They can't measure that. They will just attribute numbers, imaginary numbers. It's ridiculous. According to the text of this regulation law, for a company to exceed this maximum amount, it will need to buy shares from another that has not used its entire limit in the so-called trading of emission permits. This way, there will never be an effective increase in carbon emissions. These quotas may also be negotiated by Brazilian companies abroad. Come on, come on! This is so blatant! Okay, so every activity, every economic activity will have a number attributed to the activity. And of course, all the things that make the most money will have the most carbon emissions. It's obvious. It's obvious. Because that's where the money is. And then these poor companies that will have this imaginary number attributed to them, which they will fail to abide by because it's baked in. They have to not be able to reduce emissions to that number. It's an imaginary number that is just there to make their life difficult. It's like an imaginary tax. And then these companies, oh my God, it's so ridiculous. They will have to use their money to buy credit, carbon credits of other companies that don't emit anything. Take a guess on what these companies that are so nice and green and are not harming the planet will be doing. I'll tell you what they will be doing. Nothing. They will be doing nothing. They will tell you that they are planting trees or making, I don't know, raising awareness. They will be just buildings full of useless people convinced they are doing something for the planet when they are just making everyone else's life miserable by talking about this non-existent carbon emissions nonsense. And obviously, since they are producing nothing, they won't be harming the environment with carbon emissions. And so they will have plenty of carbon credits to sell. Isn't that fortunate for these people who are invested in saving the planet? That their activity doesn't emit any CO2, nothing. They are so green and so nice. They are saints, really. They are the saints of this new church of environmentalism that is just coming in to sell permits Indulgences. This is what they are selling. Environmental indulgences. Get out of sin free cards. This is the new racket. Perpetrated by the same people. It's always the same people. It's the useless people that don't know how to do anything except lie, create stories, and then make the whole financial system go along with it, and the governments, because there is money in it, which they take. I wish they took it for nothing, but they take this money by the activity of making us regular people nuts and annoyed and irritated. Meddling. This is their business. Meddling in capable people's lives. People who have done nothing wrong and just want to go about their lives doing useful products and providing useful services for everyone else. I can't tell you how disappointed I am that people don't get this. That regular human beings, lovely people, honest people, really nice and lovely people don't see this. It makes me so sad, because if everyone could see this for what it is, this wouldn't be happening. These guys would be covered in tar and feathers by now. Okay, let's see if there's anything else that is completely idiotic and irritating. Oh yeah, this phrase that this way, with them doing all these shenanigans, there will never be an effective increase in carbon emissions, is so obvious. Obviously, this is what they will then say, that everything is fine because they are doing this, because they are buying and selling these credits and making everything okay. But everything is already okay. We don't need these people. We don't need this whole carbon market. We don't need any of that. Of course it will be fine because there is nothing going on. Oh my God, such a big money racket. Look at how they put it. The big question to be asked is how each country can contribute to saving life on the planet. Brazil can make a huge contribution to the world. And then they tell this, that Brazil is one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases, which feed the global warming. It's lie upon ridiculous story, upon fairy tales. I wish I had a unicorn farm. Pink unicorns for everyone. Just give me money so that I can then appease the big unicorn god that I'm not emitting any carbon dioxide and harming fairies. Look at this now. From the article. It is not a purely environmental debate. It is a debate that is intertwined with the economic debate, declared some idiot during the vote in Congress. There is an expectation that Brazil will attract foreign investment by acting to fulfill environmental commitments. Can you see it? Not only will this buying and selling of fake credits go on inside the country, but it will attract investors, which means that Brazil will now be exporting credits. Oh my God. Oh my God. Now here's an interesting bit. Another one. Everything to me is interesting in this article because it's so blatant. But the agricultural production was left out of all these regulations. Do you know why? Do you know why? Do you want to know why? Because Brazil exports food for a lot of countries that are not tropical and don't have food production all year round. one of the main features of Brazil, by the way. Seriously, come to Brazil. It is a mess down here, I won't lie to you. Crazy government. It's not paradise, far from it. It's like a very nice, laid-back part of hell. No, I'm kidding. It's a very nice country, really. I love it here. But for the right reasons, like weather and food and the people, they're all great. But yeah, government is crazy and full of stupidity like everywhere else. So if someday you have the idea, oh, I would like to visit a tropical country, really, come to Brazil and see for yourself. It's just like one of the best places to eat. Really. We have marvelous food down here and fantastic weather and wonderful people. It's really a great place to live and to visit. So don't come to Brazil for ridiculous monuments or whatever. Come for the food. You won't be disappointed. It's marvelous food. Okay. So of course, this whole regulation and carbon market can't be thrusted upon Brazilian production of food. The world needs Brazil's exports of food products. Anyway, then there is a little drawing here in the article that explains how this is going to be done. And I will tell you how it's going to be done. Government will create an annual limit of carbon emissions that will be decreasing in number. Of course it will decrease. This is the way you make value of some imaginary asset go up. You create the asset and then you make it more difficult to get over time so that its value then goes up. It's the same thing that happens when companies that have stock start buying back their shares so that the price of the individual paper, the individual stock goes up. It's a known strategy. It's ridiculous. It's a financial strategy, very common. Okay, so then the government will create out of thin air these imaginary numbers, and then it's exactly like an IPO or a creation of a crypto market. It's the same thing. You create some units of whatever it is, you put a limit on these units, and then over time you make it more scarce. That's it. That's it. Very simple thing. Okay, then the government creates these assets out of thin air, imaginary things, and then they make an auction. This would be the IPO. And so that the racket can continue, part of this money that people will give them for these imaginary assets, and the people that will be buying these things, companies and hedge funds and whatever, they're just doing this because it's a good investment. This imaginary crap is a good investment. It will yield a lot of money. Okay, so then part of this money will be given to research and development of techniques to decarbonize the economy. That means this money will be given to insane lunatics that will come up with more stories, spin-offs of this story, so that this racket can continue indefinitely, or until it gets old or people catch up to this insanity and see it for what it is, and then the whole thing will get dismantled and they will start just another racket. Because this is what they do, right? People with no capabilities and and no willingness to work, and that have figured out that this ridiculous show business masquerading as reality is very, very profitable. If you just pop one balloon of these guys, they will come up with another show. It's a flying circus. So don't even bother trying to combat them. You can't combat air or gases. They will come up with another thing to sell indulgences. It's always the same people. Relax and just laugh at those guys. Sure, they make your life miserable, but we won't get anywhere getting all riled up. We have to laugh these people out of existence. We have to make normal, regular, lovely human beings aware of what is being done to them, and then people will just see that the emperor has no clothes, and they will laugh at their funny bits. And then this will all be over in one big swoop. So just go about your life. Don't bother much about these ridiculous idiots, but tell people what is going on. If you are aware of what's going on, just tell others, so that we all can have a big laugh at this ridiculous circus and send the clowns home. Send them packing. Dismantle these stupid structures that we don't need. They are just there taking up space and making us crazy. Okay, so these people then okay, so going back, government will create out of thin air a new market, and then hedge funds and such will buy these non-things. And obviously they have the whole industrial complex participating and giving them money so that they can then appease the god of the environment and pay for their indulgences. And this is also interesting for industry, because obviously industry will try to buy more shares than they will use up, so that they will have shares of this non-thing left over when the year is up, so they can then sell these shares back to other poor companies that are small and can't participate in this racket because they're small, right? They're just regular people trying to, I don't know, raise some chickens or produce some clothes or whatever. It's always the same thing. The peasants will pay the feudal lords with their work. It's always the same thing. And of course, the big industries who have a lot of money will then buy a lot of shares, and all these people buying these non-things will make these non-things scarce, and then the little people, us, will have to then buy these shares for double or triple the price, so that we can go on living our normal, non-harmful lives that is doing nothing to the environment. Okay, and then they go about the distribution of resources. Meaning their friends that will get the money, their ill-gotten gains of this whole operation. Okay, so listen to this. The project creates the Brazilian greenhouse gas emission trading system. I don't need to say anything else. It says it all. To be implemented gradually over the next few years. When a company has a limit available for the release of polluting gases, it can transform this right into a carbon credit, an asset. See, they tell you, an asset that will be traded and can be purchased by another company that has already reached the limit and needs more quotas. These operations will be taxed, haha, there it is, which will result in tax collection. So they will distribute money to their friends, and then these friends will create revenue back to the government. Come on, Come on, it's so obvious. Stop believing these people when they tell you they are here to save the environment. They are here to save their own asses from extinction. Because if people get a grip that this is going on, they will be finished. Finished. These people will be finished. If enough regular, honest, hardworking, lovely people find out, really see what's being done to them. So yeah, this is how this article ends. That explains why all this regulation and laws were necessary. There was a fear that the government could use the revenue obtained from taxation in the carbon market to improve the results of public accounts. They are already saying that they will need more extra revenue in 2024, in addition to what has already been approved in Congress, to meet the target of zeroing the fiscal deficit. So yeah, the government needs money, and the greenhouse gas god also needs money, and the United Nations and the financial sector, everyone needs money. Isn't that completely new information? You never knew this before, that all these people who are not doing anything need money, and so they come up with all these rackets and sell it to people as real in this augmented reality we live in, made up of stories and spin-offs of said stories, fictional universe that most of the people around you, I'm sure, think is real. I want to end this with a quote from Walt Disney, who made his fortune by selling stories. The goal of marketing is to create a customer who is so loyal they will never consider buying from anyone else. Now adapt this to the consumer of a story. The goal of marketing these stories is to create a customer, a person who believes these stories, that is so loyal, that is so sure that these stories are real, that they will never consider buying from anyone else. So they will never even consider that these stories are lies. And this is how all these people, all these racketeers, get away with their lying and their money rackets. The stories they create have so many spin-offs, and they are so intertwined, and they are so present in people's lives. They're everywhere, in schools, in books, in the media, even your friends, your lovely but gullible friends who believe all this. They build this universe with their words, and they will always corroborate everything these people are saying. These people have one product and one product only: stories or lies. And sadly, most of the people who are invested in these stories don't know that they are lying. To them, they are telling the truth, and people who don't believe them are crazy. And this is why it's so difficult to cut through these lies, because for most of the people out there, these lies are the only thing they know. These storytellers have created customers who are so loyal, they will never consider any alternative story. They will never consider truth. And they will never consider that their own reasoning is better than all these explanations that they are presented combined. They have been made blind and deaf, and many of them are leading others. So I just want to thank you for not being one of them. If you are here listening to me ramble on about carbon emissions and the carbon racket, then you are one of these special people that are taking the time to understand the mess we're in. And so I just want to thank you for your time and your patience. I'm very grateful, truly. Thank you for listening. See you next time.